welcome back to Rapid TV Studio, uh, broadcasting to you from Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. My name is Rashid Onyagi, and as usual, we'll be bringing you analysis and live reports on what is happening at the International Conference Center, where the collation at the national level is still ongoing. This has been bedeviled by a lot of controversies that we hope will not uh, mar today's proceedings. Yet again, the continuation of the collation has been postponed till 2 o'clock, which is not too long from now. And before we go there or we bring that event to you, we will be doing some analysis about what happened yesterday. It's been quite an interesting time, even though the coalition has been proceeding quite very slowly. But a lot of states have been over and done with. So we have a bigger picture of where the electorate is swinging in terms of their choice. But you can never really predict anything. But the trend now is that the APC candidate is in the lead. But that is hardly anything to celebrate until the final results are in. So if you are an APC supporter, please hold your horses. It is not yet time for celebration. If you are a PDP supporter, don't lose hope because all the votes have not been counted. And if you are a supporter of Labour Party, well, I'll say the same. Just have hope. Things have not finished yet. And of course, with the other parties, you also have a chance. But no, I don't mean that in an ironic or sarcastic way. You don't know what can happen in an election, though it doesn't seem like anybody could quite marshal up enough votes to race past the three big winners, I will say, and get in front. It doesn't seem possible. But like Nigerians will say, uh, there is, I've forgotten, nothing is impossible.
Mhm.
Anyway, welcome to the program, which is Monday 2023 from Rapid TV. And with me here today is my constant companion, Cynthia Agbo.
Yeah, good afternoon, Nigeria. Good afternoon, Abuja. Good afternoon, world. And it's really been, and good afternoon, Rashid, as well.
Good
It's really been a dramatic, experience and a dramatic time. And I mean, Nigerians are eager. Nigerians in diaspora, Nigerians in Nigeria are all eager. Even myself, I am eager, to see how this election, I mean, how the election is going to turn out. Yes, because we are still in the process of electing that person. Yes, we've casted the vote, which is the first part of it. Did you vote? It's my
Yes,
turn to ask you.
yes, I did.
Okay, I will not go for that. So yeah, so our votes are still being counted, and I think of today we've had about I think 14 to 15 states, and each of these candidates are all getting amazing and massive votes for themselves. And in a ton of events, I mean, some states that we didn't even expect will be gotten by some
Yes,
candidates
it surprises.
like Kano, for example, it was like a flawless for Rabiu Kwankwaso, and it was a very. I mean, some of my colleagues described it as a very funny result. But then, how funny is that to you, Mr. Rashid?
Okay, I'll tell you that later. But we have here with us a very, very astute guest who is going to discuss some of the issues with us. His name is Dr. Jennings. Dr. Jennings,
Yes,
you are very much welcome to the
thank you very
program.
much, Mr.
And
Rashid.
well, I must ask you first of all, did you vote?
Of course, I did. The ink is still on my face.
Oh, okay, that's proof. Well, I scraped it. Welcome to the
Voted.
program, Dr.
Yes,
Jennings.
yes.
Uh, how have you seen the presidential National Assembly elections that we're having so far, right from the preparation time to the balloting, the voting, and of course, the very contentious collation process that we're now seeing.
You know, if you follow history about historical events in the political setting of Nigeria, democracy, you'll find out that since 1999, till until about 2015, 2019, we've all had what I call voters apathy. But in 2023, changed a lot because the number of turnout was huge compared to other elections that have been conducted in Nigeria in the last, let's say, 15, 16 years of the democracy in Nigeria. And again, what I find out in this 2023 election was a clash of personalities, some political gladiators. Uh, there were four political gladiators, but two are more prominent. Ahmed Bola Tinubu and the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. These are two main political gladiators. Then other ones like Peter Obi, Rabiu Kwankwaso came on lately. They were not really what I call political gladiators, but their outing and the way they left from their traditional political parties and went to another political
Yeah.
parties, actually gave Nigerians the belief that let's let's give it a shot. It doesn't matter what the political parties you're coming from. So this election was it's an election that really took Nigerians, everyone as a citizen was on the watch, was on alert, was eager to see what the outcome would be. And you can see what is playing out that four four contenders are just looking at what would be the outcome. And again, the inroads in the electoral act actually gave the people impetus to actually give it a shot because Nigerians in the past, never believed that their votes really counted. So they said, okay, fine, this is 2023. It's a different ball game. And the INEC as a electoral body uh, gave the impression to the Nigerian populace, or the Nigerian people, that this election is going to be transparent and free and fair. But what some things were saying, the grievances and the uh, misgivings from the Nigerian people are beginning to churn out and beginning to have doubt, uh, the credibility of this election. Because what anybody that wins this election, the legitimacy of forming a government will be so tight.
But Doctor,
Yes.
legitimacy has always been a contention in
yeah.
Nigerian
Yes.
politics,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
most of the time we find out that uh, um, uh, after the elections,
Yeah.
there's always this total attempt to win it through the court processes, as you say. But this time around, the presidential election, which is what is really everybody is focusing on, which is in itself uh, a an anomaly because they say all politics are local. So how then will you think that having a particular president makes a little bit of difference to anything? People should be focusing more on what happens at their state levels. But that's not the question I want to ask you. The question I really want to ask you is this. Um, you've given a very fantastic overview of the electoral process, but focusing specifically on the events of the past 2 days in terms of the questioning of the very legitimacy of the process, not even the legitimacy of the person that has been elected, the legitimacy, the integrity of the process, and the basis upon which this integrity is being questioned. Do you agree with the um, uh, complainants who came out to say, okay, if INEC has agreed
Mm.
to upload results
Yes.
and they didn't on time, because that has to be qualified, okay, they did not upload it on time. Does that time um, gap between when they were expected to upload the results and when they actually started doing so, does it give anybody enough time to change the figures or rig the election?
Well, from the little I know about the electoral law, or which is in use right now, INEC is constitutionally, by that provision of that electoral law, they are the one that's been mandated to conduct election.
Yes.
They are to conduct election. Uh, their focus is to conduct a free and fair election. So, and whatever that means, free and fair election means within the ambit of the law to conduct that a free and fair election. So, if the contenders or the political parties feel that there's some electoral aspect of the law were not complied, or were not obeyed, or were not strictly uh, maintained by the electoral body, it's not for the INEC to look at to say to join issues with some of these political parties.
Okay.
And technically, if it's because there are going to be a lot of litigations, and even if some cases are taken to court, the courts are going to look at the merits and demerits of some of these litigations, and if it doesn't meet within uh, the electoral law itself, some cases can be thrown out from the court with it lacks merit, and you must be a party. You must be a party to any political party. It's not enough for you to be a citizen to say, okay, you want to go to court to sue the INEC for not complying or for not doing what they ought to be doing or should be doing. So it's left for the court to look at the merits and demerits of some of the things that we brought before them. And again, you know that this technology, we're not perfect with it. It's a technology that's been introduced for the first time. The full whole of this kind of technology is being used in our election. So it's we are in the process of still learning. I think what I would urge Nigerian people is to wait for the INEC to to do the needful. Doing the needful simply means that let them finish collating the results and look at some of these issues that Nigerians and some of these political parties, the agents, the people concerned, have raised, and they look at it and say, okay, fine. Did we meet certain requirements, or did we fall short of certain requirements? Then, if they are not properly convinced in what the submissions of the INEC or the response of the INEC, Nigerians are obliged to either take it or not to take it. But let's wait until these final results have been announced from the INEC. But what I see that played out is that INEC, it's they were overwhelmed by the magnitude of this kind of election. That the election of 2015 and election of 2019 were not as so huge, as so magnitude as the way this election. Because this is the highest time that we have this kind of voters, uh, the highest numbers of people
Okay.
that register in their INEC voters list. So it's something that INEC is still in the learning process. Like if you ask me, some of the things I would recommend for the INEC is to look into the system of uploading results, at that polling board. Make use of the network system. Some of this network system or these network companies should be in collaboration with INEC to facilitate the upload of results, so that immediately results are uh, voting ends, results can be uploaded or can be transmitted. So we look at the system, some of those lapses that people find difficult, where this result uploaded at the point that this result were announced or by the ward level. So we look at what are the challenges because at the end of the day, INEC is going to do analysis, overall analysis of the outcome of this election, where the lapses and where they made inroads or inputs. What are the new things they find in this election? And other international bodies like the EU and other African Union, ECOWAS, they're also going to make an input recommendation to the INEC and say, listen, these are areas you people need to improve because election now is a global thing. So you have international organizations like EU, some folks coming from America, some from African Union. So they have been conducting elections. People have been observing elections in the last 30, 35 years. So our democracy is about 20, 23, 24 years. So it's still a nascent democracy. It's still, yeah.
On that, but
Yeah.
I think Cynthia wants to ask you a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yesterday at
Yes.
the Coalition Center, several agents of the different parties, they staged a walkout, and they said they weren't going to accept this result. And I remember when they had a media briefing, they talked about the fact that if the chairman insists on not attending to their demands of uploading this result, that they were never going to come back, for the read of the result. Now, my question would be, what does this portend? Because now, when that happened, the INEC chairman didn't make any move than just to continue the reading of the results. Now, these parties, about 10 parties, the Labour Party, the PDP, and some other parties, those who were left in the hall were just the agents of the APC and the SDP, and just few parties, that were left in the hall. Now, majorly, imagine a whole more than 10 living. Now, is this going to affect the processes? And of course, and also these parties that have left, do they have? Is there what is the worst that can happen? At this stage.
Well, they are working out, or the walkout from their National Coalition Center was not necessary because it's going to be counterproductive in the sense that you are trying to achieve something, but at the same time, what you are trying to achieve, you have not come to the final conclusion. Logically, if you look at it, the INEC is not, the national chairman is not compelled. There's no law that says that if it doesn't do this, that the election will not hold.
Okay.
So what will happen, like President Buhari said it, that if people feel that this election is not free or fair, or people feel any misgivings, that the court is there to pretend whatever grievances or misgivings that will be the outcome of the election. What if I were in their position, if I were in their shoes, what I would have advised them was to stay put and follow it to logical conclusion, and make up their some of the observations and note them down. So even if the INEC chairman doesn't yield to their own demand, so because it's a win-win situation, it can't compare the INEC chairman to say because of some of the issues you have raised that this result must be cancelled or we must stop coalition, because the law doesn't allow that to happen. Because if it does that, it's a violation of the electoral law. Because
Doctor,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
yeah,
Of course,
Yeah.
the fact that they said they cannot accept the result
yeah,
does not invalidate the franchise
Yes.
of the voters,
Yes.
because it is the voters that voted.
yes,
Okay,
Mm.
and ultimately,
Mm.
if the party does not accept the result, like you said, they just go to the court.
Mm.
And this is not the first time we will have. In fact, every time that a presidential election result has been declared, someone goes to court.
Even in 2019, but nothing
2019.
happened.
The candidate said he is now going. Sorry, this was in 2015.
yes,
The candidate who is now the president said he's done with politics, that he's not going to court, but his party did. And of course, they lost. Sorry, that was, sorry,
That was
20
before
that's
2015.
2011
Yeah,
2011,
when he
2011.
said he wasn't contesting anymore. And he wasn't going to court either. His party went to court on his behalf, and they didn't get a judgment that will necessarily put him back in power. In 2015, of course, there were no court cases because the incumbent conceded defeat.
Defeat, yes.
Okay, but there were still contentions. Okay, then in 2019,
2019.
Atiku Abubakar went to court asking that he be declared
Declared the winner.
president, not that the election should be cancelled. And this must have come from an awareness that the gravity of a situation that will be created if you annul. We've had elections annulled in Nigeria before. Annul a presidential election. That means cancel a presidential election whose results have been announced, just like in June 12th.
Yes.
Don't you think it's a bit extreme for anybody, even while the process has not finished, to even suggest, as the Labour Party spokesperson suggested, that the election, that the ongoing coalition process should be cancelled and a new
It's
election
calling for
held?
anarchy. That would lead to anarchy if that is allowed.
Again,
Yeah.
the Commonwealth Electoral Observer Group came out to give their preliminary report.
Yes.
And they clearly attested to the fact that the election was fair, even though with challenges.
Yes.
And even the process that led to the transmission of the results to the national level has not been questioned. Yes, there were pockets of violence and ballot snatching,
Yes.
but like you said, it has not affected the turnout or the enthusiasm of Nigeria to exercise their franchise. Then former President Obasanjo came out and in effect is saying the same thing that the opposition is saying, that the election should be rejected. He didn't categorically state that. He said those areas where he actually alleged that electoral officers were compromised. And
Was it what compromise on what area?
Compromised, that they received money or something, but
Does it have the proof?
precisely. Now,
It has the proof.
what is your impression about an elder statesman coming out like this to actually impugn the integrity of a process that he himself has
That's
been
true.
part of before, and he knows the kind of things were not as easy. Voting was not as easy during Obasanjo's period as it is now. So what's your impression?
And look, it looks very exciting, coming from the former president Olusegun Obasanjo to have made that kind of comment. Although he's entitled to express his opinion, the Constitution allows that, but it should do within the ambit of the law. But it shouldn't be a statement that will incite people by making sweeping comment, because that alone, asking for the election to be cancelled, simply means that you're inciting the people to go on street to cause civil unrest. That alone, as a former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he ought to be neutral in his comment and allow the process to be over, because the process is still over. The only thing that can stop INEC right now is the court, because INEC operate within the ambit of the Constitution. So because it gives room for somebody to go to court now to say, I want this process to be stopped. But the court cannot do that, because there has to be a local standee where the court will say this based on this merit. It has to be convincing enough.
But does the non-uploading of the results at the time when they were available for upload constitute a sufficient locus standi to say that if this was not followed, if this process was not followed, then every instance in which those uploads did not take place at that time are
Well,
invalid?
if there were some malpractices, in this election, then you can't prove that results were tampered.
But what they
or
were alleging
manipulated.
is that the very act of not uploading the result is a malpractice.
Now, that's allow the court to prove that.
Okay.
It's the court that
Because that doesn't need proof as
yeah,
such.
yeah. The court will look at. That's what I said. The court will look at the merit and the demerit of this case, and if it's favorable enough, like you were saying something about the election in Nigeria, that most elections, that never election in Nigeria, they have not gone to the highest court of the land, to seek justice. But the Supreme Court is not a court for anyhow requests, because the Supreme Court is not a Father Christmas. The Supreme Court what the Supreme Court does is to interpret the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. So they look at what is your stand? Are you a party to this election? Are you a party to this election, or were you a candidate in this election?
Okay.
Or just
Let
a
me-
concerned citizen?
Sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you, but
yeah, okay.
we do have to go for a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back after this break.
Thank you. The battery, thank you.
Okay, back on the camera. All right, welcome back. It's still the mandate 2023, and of course, we've been talking about the elections and the collation, the outcome, the grievances, how Nigerians are reacting. Now, of course, our guest is still here in the studio. Myself and Rashid are also here. And before we went on that necessary break, our guest was talking about the possibility, the negativity, and of course, what can be expected as pertaining to what the agents are demanding for. And of course, I remember I had a question. So before I hand over to you, Mr. Rashid, let me just quickly ask this particular question, because I know you have so many questions you want to ask Doctor here. All right, so Doctor, I'd like to ask, do you think that this agitation by these party agents are coming from a selfish point? I'm careful to use that word selfish, but I just had to use it because we realize that the APC agent is so calm and very satisfied with the way everything is going. And for every time other agents are agitating, he keeps saying, let's continue with the process, let's continue with the process. And by the time it gets to what does not give us, I really see the case of big stuff, because as a